Outside of this one church town, there's a gold dirt road to a whole lot of nothing. Got a deed to the land, but it ain't my ground. This is God's country. We pray for rain and thank Him when it's falling, 'cause it brings a grain and a little bit of money. We put it back in the plate, I guess that's why they call it God's country. I saw the light in a sunrise, sitting back in a 40 on the muddy riverside, getting baptized in holy water and shine with the dogs running. Saved by the sound of a pin-found Dixie whistle in the wind, that'll get you heaven bound. The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around. This is God's country. We turn the dirt and work until the week's done. We take a break and break bread on Sunday, then do it all again, 'cause we're proud to be from God's country. I saw the light in a sunrise, sitting back in a 40 on the muddy riverside, getting baptized in holy water and shine with the dogs running. Saved by the sound of a pin-found Dixie whistle in the wind, that'll get you heaven bound. The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around. This is God's country. God's country. I don't care what my headstone reads or what kind of pine wood box I end up in. When it's my time, lay me 6 feet deep in God's country. I saw the light in a sunrise, sitting back in a 40 on the muddy riverside, getting baptized in holy water and shine with the dogs running. Saved by the sound of a pin-found Dixie whistle in the wind, that'll get you heaven bound. The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around. This is God's country. Yeah, I saw the light in a sunrise, sitting back in a 40 on the muddy riverside, getting baptized in holy water and shine with the dogs running. Saved by the sound of a pin-found Dixie whistle in the wind, that'll get you heaven bound. The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around. This is God's country.
Hey guys, I don't know about you, man, but I still get fired up every time I listen to that song. Man, it fires me up, right? Fires me up. Hey guys, we got a special guest today. We can't wait. And I'm jealous over here. I'm over here in Apollo Beach, Florida, 20 miles south of Tampa, and I'm in my man cave. But I wish right now I was in Phoenix right now. I wish I was with Bobby and with Chris. Bobby, tell us where you're at, and then we're going to give everybody a warm welcome, and then we're going to go and we're going to do a special memorial. Tell us where you're at, Bobby.
We're in North Phoenix at Smokin' Joe's Cigar Lounge, and it's a nice place here, owned by a veteran, an Army veteran, Justin. If you guys happen to be in the area, it's off of Tatum and Cave Creek. Nice place, and he's been a great host. And I think this is going to be one of my go-to places to grab a cigar and a beer. So nice. Here's where Chris and I are at.
Oh, man, Bobby, next time we're down there, man, you're going to definitely have to take us down there. And we're thankful that he's allowing us to go live at his place. Guys, with that said, let's give everybody a welcome that's watching us. We got Ceci, one of our faithful listeners, been with us from the very beginning, watching us all the way from Riverside, California, probably drinking her water with limon. And we got the crime fighter watching us all the way from Thailand, a legend, Batman, Jim Janice, watching us from Thailand live right now. We got Mike Martinez, another legend, law enforcement legend, watching us from Littleton, Colorado. We can't wait to have you back, brother. all the way from San Diego. We got former robbery detective Chris Kilby, 1097. Let's go. Thank you, brother. You're a legend, without a shadow of a doubt. We got another legend. We got Darren, 4322. He's going to be on with us probably in January, talking about the big PSA crash that happened in San Diego back in 1978. He's a pilot watching us once again, I believe from San Diego, but from Del Mar area. We got Cocaine Cowboys Uncensored. Chris watching us all the way from the Philippines live right now. Another legend that's been on with us, so we can't wait to have you back. We got another one of our faithful listeners watching us right now live from Long Beach, California. Thank you, brother VJ Juarez. And we got Alex Silva. Glad to see Chris back on the show. After Escobar is an awesome read. Yes, it is. And wait till you hear the backstory behind the book. We can't wait. Yes, got to stay hydrated, says he. Thank you. Guys, with that said, Bobby, it's all yours, my brother.
Last week we lost a legend. Obviously, we're still hurting. Carlos Chacon, Sergeant Carlos Chacon passed away last week, and here at Phoenix PD, lost a giant of a man, a great cop, a great man, and he was a mentor for a lot of us, especially those of us for Navarro. He came from Navarro, and just a small world. Luis Bandola, retired detective Luis Bandola, came from the same barrio that I came from, except he's almost old enough to be my father. Lou worked narcotics and was one of the first narcotics cops that was buying heroin during the 70s. And then later laid the groundwork for the rest of us that came along. And he then moved over to robbery detail. And he later moved to organized crime and was in the wiretap groups that were doing the wiretaps on the Mexican drug gang / cartels. Lou had been sick for a while, and another one of our warriors that cancer took him. And I've been in contact with his son, who I went to school with, and he passed away Saturday. And I just want to, until we meet again, Louis, we're going to miss you. And want to thank Louis for all the help he did, all the guidance he gave to all of us young narcs, young cops. And here's to Big Lou, Luis Bandola. Till we see each other again. Here we go. Salud. Salud. Salud.
Beautiful, Bobby. May you rest in paradise with Carlos Chacon, all of our other warriors. Guys, with that said, I'm going to be passing it over to Bobby shortly. He's going to take over the rest of the show with our special guest. But before we hand it over to Bobby, Sean, we'll start off with you. What are you drinking tonight? Tell us, my brother.
I went back to the Kirkland Old Fashioned. Right. Nice and smooth and sweet. And your fake cigars here.
All right. Well, good.
I know. Now I know what to get Sean for Christmas.
A fake cigar.
Yeah, fake cigar.
You know what? Get him one of those bubble gum ones. Remember those little bubble gums for kids? Yeah. Get him one of those.
I want one of those expensive bottles that you get. I will get nothing less.
Hey guys, you know what? Before we pass it over to Bobby, because I know he's probably drinking $1,000 bottle and smoking the best cigar. Him and Chris, tell us we're going to call you the $1 million man, Doug, because you always have the $300 bottles. What are you drinking tonight, my brother? And by the way, I love that hat. It looks good.
Thank you. So this one is it's an American whiskey, and it's a very small distillery in Tall Pines, Missouri. This one's called Lone Pine. It's a limited edition. It's bottle 60 out of whatever they get out of a barrel. He made one barrel of it. I think it was like $120. Wow. But it's a family owned distillery, and Kim and I went there. If you ever have a chance to go to that distillery, they got an event center. They have concerts in the summertime. It's really nice. But they specialize. This is for you, Bobby. They specialize in moonshines. So
nice.
they got some tasty moonshines. Let me tell you.
Hey, Doug. Well, tell us. Describe the drink. How is it?
It's kind of moonshine-ish.
Really?
It's got a bite at the backside, not like a peaty bite, but kind of a fiery bite. Um, but it's got a caramel apple kind of flavor to it. But it's really nice. It's a nice sipping American whiskey. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, guys, you know what? Once in a while at Costco, they have these specials. You can only buy one bottle, and then they sell the rest. And then the following day, they still have it, which they never do. They're special. They call them special editions that are half price than they normally go for. But Kirkland made one not too long ago, probably about a month and a half ago. It's called Bottle and Bono Master Distillers Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. And you could only buy one. I'm telling you, it is a great whiskey. I think I only paid like $69, but it's probably worth $200. But it's like I said, it has a Kirkland brand. They didn't tell me who actually makes it, but I'm telling you, it's definitely well worth the $69 and it's delicious. And it's one of those whiskeys where I could drink it straight like you do.
There you go.
Not like me with a little bit of water. But it's one of those that just tastes delicious, no peaty taste. It's just a good bourbon, delicious. And Bobby, go ahead.
I said you got to drink it like you're in the Wild West. They didn't have ice.
Exactly. That's right.
Yes.
And park your horse. You got to park your horse.
Yeah.
Don't forget
like water, so you don't need water.
That's right. Hey, Bobby, drinking, my man. I think they froze. Let me see, Bobby. What are you drinking?
I'm having a Modelo because I got to drive, so I don't want to get stupid. And then I got a drive to head back. So I'm having a Modelo right there, and I'm having an Agdorosa Leaf Habano cigar right there.
Oh, great!
It's a really good one. I'm almost done because I got here earlier, and it's with a lot of these, it's very earthy. Love to smoke. First time I've ever had this one. And that's what I'm having. And see what Chris is having. Chris is having a Rocky Patel and a Modelo.
Which Rocky Patel? Which one? Which edition? Do we have a name of it?
Connecticut. So vintage. I've had that one before. It's a good smoke.
Okay, yeah, Rocky Patel. Did you know that one of his biggest stores is 2 hours away from me in Naples, and I've been there several times, and I've met the gentleman, very friendly individual, and he has one of his main shops there. Great guy, Rocky Patel. You can't go wrong with that, or the Agorosa. With that said, Bobby, it's all yours, my brother.
Well, I want to welcome all our viewers, those who are watching live and those who will be watching later on. Pleased to have our guest. We had him on before his book was released. Chris Feistle is a retired DEA agent, and he worked all over the place. Eventually, he worked in Bogota. He worked in all over Colombia, Florida, and retired here in Phoenix. And here is his book, and I highly recommend his book. For those of you who watched the Netflix Narco series, it was, to me, I don't watch a lot of TV, but I watched it. It was really good, and being an old narcotics cop, loved it. Being a cop, when I watched Netflix Narcos, it made me kind of feel envious of the DEA guys that were able to travel overseas and take on these monsters up close and personal, which we're dealing more with the distributors and best we deal with on the street here. We had Chris on before. We talked a little bit about the book that was getting ready to come out. And here it is, After Escobar. Because what happened, here it is right here, Chris Feistle. And what happened is, a lot of people hear the stories about Pablo Escobar and the Medellin cartel. Most people don't realize Cali was a monster. They were like, they took it to another level. And Chris was at ground zero. and we'll go into some of the stories. We're not going to give away all the secrets because we want you guys to go out and buy the book. we're gonna let Chris some of the challenges he faced, and I think one of the things I wanted to ask him right here when we start. Well, I'm going to ask him right now. What did the series get right, and what did the series did get right? As far as there's always going to be some Hollywood stuff in there. So I want to introduce our guest. Here's Chris. Welcome, Chris. I'm really happy to have you here again. And let's talk about your book. The book came out, I think, in November, but June came out in June, and so I have a lot of friends that I've turned them on to this book. Oh, and while we're at it, really quick, I saw Leo Silva's on.
He's on right now.
Leo's book, Reign of Terror. Yeah, I just saw him. And Reign of Terror, I also would highly recommend that book. I think Leo's working on another one. And Reign of Terror covers the rise and fall of Los Zetas. So, Chris, where do you want to start?
Wherever you want.
Let's go back to, you're back in Colombia. How did you get there? Because we've done an introduction. Anyone wants to know some of the background on Chris, we'll go briefly into it, but we had him on before. Chris was a former cop. Which agency did you work for before you joined DEA?
So first of all, thanks for having me back on, Bobby. Thanks to Leo too. I highly recommend his book about the Zetas. Amazing, very well written, great story. So I used to work as a police officer, summer police officer in Wildwood, New Jersey for 3 summers. I parlayed that into working with the Virginia Beach Police Department for about 1.5 years. And while I was with Virginia Beach, I applied to DEA, and it took me about 1.5 years to get hired. And I was very young when I got hired by DEA. I got the call when I was 23. I'd been a cop for 3 years at that time. And I went to Quantico. My first duty assignment out of Quantico was Miami, Florida.
So from Florida, what kind of cases were you doing when you got there? Did you have any idea when you first got to Florida that you would be, did you have any desire to travel outside the U.S. and work some of the cases, say in Mexico, Colombia, all the other stations that are out there?
I did, and that was one of the reasons that attracted me to DEA was because at the time, back in the 80s when I got hired, 1988, DEA probably had 50 or 60 different offices overseas in the foreign arena. And one of the things that I always wanted to do was travel internationally, get exposed to different cultures, learn different languages. And, being in Miami back in the 80s, it was like being in a foreign country as well.
Yeah.
With all the, you have a huge population there. We always used to joke around and we called it Medellin North because of all the Colombians that were living there at the time. And because of the cases, the high-level cases that we were working in Miami at the time, we got exposed to a lot of international travel. So we were always following up on leads all throughout the Caribbean, Central America, and South America. And during that time when I was working in Miami for 6 years, I thought, first of all, to be a DEA agent back in the late 80s, you had to work in Miami, right? Miami was ground zero for the drug war back then. It was the home of Miami Vice, the cocaine cowboys. And, we always joke around and say cocaine was falling out of the sky. And literally it was because of all the air activity. So because of working there and the cases and the travel, I thought, if I really want to be a DEA agent, I got to go to ground zero. I got to go to the Mecca where everything is happening and go work against the biggest and the baddest drug cartels on the planet, which was Colombia at that time.
For our viewers who don't have law enforcement experience, in the 80s, especially during the time Chris was there, even when I was working drugs in Phoenix, all the drugs, a lot of drugs were coming from primarily the Caribbean into Miami and coming our way, and also from LA. A lot of the stuff was going to LA through the Colombians there who set up shop. They coming into Phoenix. So when the cocaine explosion hit, when the crack cocaine explosion hit, as a street cop working in Phoenix, we dealt with all the related violence, and out of nowhere, we started getting everyone was selling dope for the cartels or their connections that were working here in the U.S. Black street gangs, Mexican American or Chicano gangs, and of course, Phoenix started seeing we didn't have Colombians in Phoenix, but we had a lot of Mexican nationals, Mexican drug gangs operating, moving that Colombian cocaine. How difficult was it for you to get to Colombia?
Well, Miami was always a recruiting grounds for a lot of the Central and South American offices back then, because, as we talked about, you were working on significant investigations while you were in Florida, targeting the Medellin and the Cali Cartel, remnants and the peripheral players. So that was the main recruiting ground. So also we were doing cases, we were working, very closely with the Bogota country office. So we knew a lot of the guys there. And, I initially, when I put in, and I outline this in the book, is when I first put in to go to Colombia, I didn't get hired. I didn't get accepted. I didn't get the job. And I was kind of surprised, because I thought, what? I have standing evaluations. I had worked the cases against the Cali and the Medellin cartel. I knew all the players. I spoke a little bit of Spanish. So I called down to one of our friends that I worked with in Miami, Steve Murphy, from Narco season 1 and season 2. And I said, Murph, what, how can I not be selected, man? I'm pretty qualified to be working down there. And at the time I was in my Miami Vice mode. I had hair down to the middle of my back. I had the 3 earrings and chains, and I had the whole, the 5-day growth. And the country attaché down there at the time was Joe Toft. He was a very serious guy. Worked against Pablo, that had been in Colombia for 6.5, almost 7 years. And Murphy tells me, he goes, "Bro, you got to get your hair cut. That surfing act might work in Miami, but it's not going to fly in an embassy." And Bobby, you guys know how it is when you work in the embassy. It's you report to the ambassador, and things are a lot more buttoned up. So he says, "Yeah, you got to get your hair cut." So I went out at lunch one day, got my hair cut, lopped off about 14 inches of my hair, and lo and behold, I put in for the next position and I got it. So that was part of the reason why I didn't get there. But Bogota at the time was very competitive. You had a lot of guys who wanted to go down there and work against the cartels. And Bobby, you guys know, working overseas, you got a lot of extra benefits. You got free housing, you got danger pay, you got hazardous duty pay, and you can make some good money while you're down there. But also because of the work, though, there was no better place to work, in the 90s than in Colombia.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody that works narcs, especially in Spanish-speaking, any Spanish-speaking narcs would want to be heading either Colombia or Mexico when it started shifting that direction. Let me ask you a question real quick from one of our viewers. Mike Powers, the DEA rack. Do you know him, or do you know where he's at now? One of our viewers is asking about him.
Sure, I knew Mike when I was in Miami. When I was there, Mike was the ASAC, I think, in Tampa, Florida. Legendary agent, worked in Thailand, had an outstanding career. I'm not sure where he's at. He may very well still be in South Florida, but yeah, I knew Mike. Very good reputation, very good agent.
So, you agent, you get down to Colombia. What do you do? I mean, you have sources. Do you have to go to a training, or it's just hit the ground running? Kind of take us through that. What do you encounter? Because I know when I started working overseas, you really have to start to understand how to operate, especially if you're working out of an embassy, a U.S. consulate. You have to deal with the bean counters, who are your state people. And in my jobs, all my bosses were non-law enforcement. So I had to kind of try to win them over to allow me to work. But what did you encounter when you went down there? How was it when you got down there?
So you're right. I mean, nothing can really prepare you for what you faced going to Colombia in early to mid 1990s. We went to I think back then it was a 3-day, what we called foreign orientation program, which was just kind of get you accustomed to, as you said, that embassy environment, working for the State Department, working for the ambassador. The ambassador is king when you're overseas, and whatever he says goes. So he has the authority and the ability to send you home the next day if he doesn't like what you're doing, which we came pretty close to several times. But when we first stepped foot into the embassy, we had worked quite a few cases, targeting the Cali Cartel, and we had some very good sources that were close to the heads of the Cali Cartel, the four godfathers, as we call them. So when we get there, we're, me and my partner Dave Mitchell, we're anxious, we're ready to go, we want to get to Cali, and we walk in there the first day, and we said, hey, all right, we're here in Colombia, we're ready to go. The two new guys are here. Let's go. All right, we need to go to Cali. We've got some leads we got to follow up on from our old duty station. And we get hit with this right off the bat, is that, Cali right now is too dangerous, and we're not sending anybody to Cali right now. There's no DEA agents going to Cali. And they said, well, we were sent here to investigate the cartel and help bring them down with Colombian security forces. So how are we supposed to do that if we can't travel to Cali? And they told us a story as to what happened, is that there were two Hispanic agents that were working there that in Cali that had their photographs taken by the cartel. The photograph made its way back to the embassy by way of one of the assets that we had. And they knew the DEA agents' names. They knew where they stayed over there. They knew where they ate. They knew where they rented their cars. They knew everything about them. So when that photograph comes to the embassy, it's seen as a threat to DEA agents operating in Cali. Of course, we all know how law enforcement and the government, especially, knee-jerk reaction. DEA is under threat. Nobody could go to Cali. So you have to investigate the Cali Cartel. This is the strategy. You have to investigate the Cali Cartel from the embassy in Bogota. So, well, it's not a very viable strategy, and I don't think we're going to be successful, and I'm pretty confident about that. So after a week of badgering, or 10 days, we finally got approval from the ambassador and DEA to go to Cali. But, the issue back then was, at that time, Colombia was the most dangerous country in the world.
Yes.
It led the world in by far in homicides, over, they average about 28 to 30,000 homicides a year. Crazy, right? Throughout the country. In kidnappings, they average about 1,450 kidnappings a year. By far led the world in kidnapping. So, for two blonde gringos at 6'2", 6'3", there's no camouflaging the way that we look. So, that was also another concern, that we wouldn't be able to blend in and work over there. So these were the kind of the things that we were hit with immediately when we got on the ground. And we were also told about the systemic corruption that existed within the Colombian security forces, as well as the search block, which was designed to go after the leaders of the Cali Cartel.
When you get there, how long did it take you to be able to gain the trust of your local partners? Because I know one thing, in countries that I've worked at, the local partners are always going to be apprehensive because they have Americans showing up, rotating in, rotating out, and it's not automatic. At least in my case, it was never automatic. You almost have to gain their confidence, show them that you're there actually to work. How long did it take for you to be able to feel that, one, the U.S. government allowed you to move, and two, you have a host government that you could work with as best as possible? We're talking a country where it's hard to keep a secret over there with your locals.
Very true. And we learned very quickly that we couldn't trust anybody when we got there, because all of the operations that we started to do initially were compromised.
Right.
And, we were tasked, we had to work with the two search blocks that were there, that were, the designated reactionary force to go after the cartels. One was a military search block, one was a police search block. And we were basically embedded with them after a while. But, on our first trip to Cali, these were the rules that we had to operate under. So as I explained with the photograph and the implied threat, no agents had been to Cali for several months before we got there. So on our first trip, they tell us, okay, you're approved to go to Cali, but these are the guidelines and the restrictions that you have to operate under. So the first one was that we couldn't spend the night on our first trip. We had to go in the morning. We had to be back by nightfall. That was the requirement. The second one was that under no circumstances could we ever leave the police or military base without a police or military escort. We had to be accompanied at all times by Colombian security forces because of the danger and the threat. And the third one is of course DEA, we all know the reputation, no cowboy shit, no unilateral activity under any circumstances. Anything that you have to do with Colombian security forces. So those were the rules that we had to operate under. But as we found out, we were doing multiple raids every day trying to capture the 4 kingpins who were wanted in Colombia at the time. And every raid, or most of the raids that we were doing, we found out that they were compromised. And the reason that we found that out, it was like what you would see in some of these Hollywood mafia movies, right? You would hit the house, you have good intel, you would go there, and there'd be no one in the house, maybe a maid or two, but there's a cup of coffee there that was steaming. You'd have a plate of food that was half eaten. You'd have unmade beds. And you knew that they were there, and you knew that they were compromised, and you knew that they had got tipped off. So it was very, very difficult for us to do our job because of that systemic corruption that existed. And to answer your question, basically, we never really trusted anybody within the search block because we knew immediately how compromised it was.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, real quick, Chris, I know that the agents down in Mexico weren't allowed to be armed. Were you allowed to be armed in Colombia?
Yes, we were. We were always armed. Anytime that we did any kind of operations, we were heavily armed. And when we started, and we'll get to it, when we started working unilaterally and doing stuff on our own without the security forces with us, yeah, we were very, very heavily armed.
Yeah. Any other question, guys?
No, I was curious because I know how it was in Mexico for the agents there, and with all the stuff he was doing in Colombia, I'm like, God, I hope he was armed.
One of the things that even I encountered, I mean, I wasn't there doing enforcement. I was there on a totally different mission, and I remember going to Matamoros, which is right on the border with Brownsville, and I had to go meet the consul general, the CG there at Matamoros, and she was new. And my boss warned me. He said, she doesn't like you guys. She don't like cops. And I walked in. She shut the door. The first thing she said is, I know how you guys are. I know how you cops are. And I don't want to hear you doing any cowboy shit. And I don't want to hear you doing blah, 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 blah. I don't want to hear that you're armed. And I just, in my mind, I thought, well, you're not going to hear it. I'm not going to tell you. It's like you go in there and they're like, you feel like our own government is trying to make it as difficult for us to operate. I'm not stupid. I didn't carry a gun everywhere, but there were some times I always had contacts that would hook me up because our government didn't hook me up. What is there anything that really helped get the ball rolling for you? Is there anything there that you could say this is the turning point for us?
Yeah, there were probably 3 or 4 things that really turned the tide for us, and it took us a long time to figure some of these out. Now, jumping forward, we had been on the ground in Cali for almost a year, and we hadn't had a lot of success. We had a few, minor arrests of Cali players, but none of the kingpins. And, after about a year, we figured that there's no way that we can continue to work with the search block. All of our operations were compromised. We were worried about our assets that we were using. So what we decided to do was we started working with, and this is the first key that put us on the path. We started working with these vetted units that were attached to the CIA. And by vetted, I mean these very small groups of police were polygraphed, they were drug tested, they went through extensive background investigations, and they were trained in the U.S. So they were about as trustworthy and reliable a group that we could find in Colombia. So when we started to do these operations, we would bring them overland from Bogota, over 200 miles away, to do these operations. And we were trying to circumvent the corruption that existed within the search blocks. That was one of the keys. The second one was we, after about a year, we started to recruit these very high-level assets that had very, very precise intelligence about the Cali Cartel, the Four Godfathers, how they operated. And through those two assets that we initially developed, we were able to conduct a surveillance operation that allowed us to arrest Roberto Rodriguez Oruela. We had followed one of his executive assistants for a week. The guy was very well trained in counter surveillance and surveillance detection. He would check out. This is what we were dealing with, right? These are how well some of these people are trained in the cartel. He would leave his apartment in a car. He would drive the car for about a mile. He would get out of the car. He'd get in a taxi. He would drive in a taxi. He would get in a taxi. They would drive for about a mile or two, sometimes in circles. He'd get out. He'd get on a bus, take a public bus. He'd get out. He'd walk across the street, walk through a mall, go in, put different hats on, change his clothing, put sunglasses on. First day this guy, we lost him after about 5 minutes, right? So we're like, holy shit, these guys are good. So we were able to follow eventually and arrest Roberto Rodriguez. The third thing is that we started, me and my partner, Dave Mitchell, started to work unilaterally, right? In order to get done what we had to do, we had to basically violate all of the rules that were set forth, as we talked about with the ambassador and by DEA, right? Had to be escorted by the police and military everywhere we went. We completely did away with that. We had our own vehicle. We had our own safe house. We were living off the base. We were doing all of our own surveillances, just me and my partner, Dave. We were debriefing assets throughout the city, all over the city, at 10, 11, 12, midnight, 2 in the morning, because we had to operate under the cover of darkness because of the way that we looked. We did our own reconnaissance missions. We planned our own operations. And then what we would do is we would call that vetted unit and say, meet us off the interstate in Cali at 2 o'clock in the morning. And we have an operation, follow us, and we're going to take you to a target. And that was all that we told them. So those three things were really key in us, gaining traction and being able to get some results.
Incredible. I know Leo Silva, I believe he had some luck with some of those vetted units in Monterrey, over in that area as well. We'll keep moving forward. So you seem to have a way of operating within to beat the system of corruption that is going to tip you off, because there's nothing more frustrating when you go on operation, like I said, and you find the maid, maybe a dog. Sometimes everything is gone, even the pigs and the dogs are gone. But, so what next steps did you start taking from there?
So after that first operation, the police were able to arrest Jose Santa Cruz in July 1995, a month after we arrested Roberto. And then we were able to recruit another very, very high-level asset, Jorge Salcedo, who was the head of security for the Cali Cartel at the time. And when we were able to recruit him, he provided us with this, staggering inside information about the cartel, about Miguel Rodriguez, how they operated, what to look for, how extensive the corruption and their counterintelligence apparatus was. We found out, and we suspected during the whole time, our main liaison with the police search block was actually one of the main cartel spies. So he was being paid by the cartel. He was tasked to report back to the cartel on what myself and Dave Mitchell were doing. And again, we had suspected him for a very, very long time, just because of the way he would act, how he would come and hang out in our bunks, how he would talk to us, invite us off base to do, go to massage parlors and stuff. So we knew, we highly suspected that he was corrupt, which he was. So in order to circumvent that, we had to use those vetted units. But through Jorge Salcedo, we were able to get this very, very precise, real-time actionable intelligence, which led us to be able to arrest Miguel Rodriguez.
I like the word we use, intelligence-based targeting.
Yep.
From the series, what did the series get right, and what did they go way off base?
Well, I'll start with what they got a little off base. So, and I've said this before several times, is that when you watch Narcos season 3, they start out by telling you that, the Cali Cartel is going to surrender within 6 months, go to prison, get out of the drug trade, and that's it. And they're going to try to make as much, money as they can during that 6 months. So that, excuse me, that was not the case. It's, we were in Colombia almost 3 years that it took us to be able to accomplish what we did. And so that 6 months time frame made it look like, hey, we went there, we got there, we had a cup of coffee, we did a few things, and then 6 months later, everything was done.
Right.
That was not the case. So that was one of the big issues that I had. But I understand why the writers did it. They wanted to compress that time frame into that 6 month span in order to create tension and drama. So, writing wise, it was brilliant, but in reality, it took us a lot longer than 6 months to do that. The other obvious one that comes up is Javier Pena, right? Played by Pedro Pascal. Javier Pena wasn't there, wasn't involved in the Cali hunt, but when I first talked to the Netflix writers and we went over the whole story, and I actually saw the first episode, and I was like, man, Javier's there. What's Pedro Pascal? What's he doing there? But and then when I knew why, because Pedro Pascal was the star power, right?
Right.
He was the big attraction for as well as Boyd in season 1 and season 2. So it made sense, cinematically, to carry him over into season 3, and I understand completely why they did it. But he wasn't there at all. So those are the two of the main things that they got a little bit wrong. But that's they take the creative liberties, and they know what they're doing to sell. It's an entertainment show. So, but what they got right, the corruption, the obstacles that we faced while we were there, the contributions to the presidential campaign of Ernesto Samper in 1994. The cartel contributed anywhere on the low side from $6 million, on the high side $10 million to Ernesto Samper's presidential campaign, and they play that out very, very well in the series. You see how that all unfolds. The Minister of Defense ended up going to prison because of that. The campaign treasurer, Santiago Medina, went to prison. That was all very, very accurately depicted. And, just a lot of the operations that we did in Cali were very, very well done. The main one, what they got right, is if you remember when we first do the raid on Miguel Rodriguez, and he's hiding in the caleta, he's hiding in that hidden compartment in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And, we're there with drills, and we're there with sledgehammers, and we're knocking the wall down, and the prosecutor busts in and basically, shuts it down and says, hey, you're to cease and desist. That was very, very accurately portrayed, 100%. And I get into a lot more detail in the book exactly what happened, but yeah, that was very, very accurately done.
When I read that part of the book, as a cop doing investigations where you lose one of the battles that had to be demoralizing, there were times when I would work cases. I remember in Haiti where I was so pissed off. I felt like a kid. I just wanted to get in my truck, drive to the airport, leave my truck on the curb, and go home and take my ball with me because I was done mentally. But then the next day you wake up and you go, okay, let's keep moving. How do you recover from something like that?
Well,
Cigars are so close.
We were so close, but it was much worse what actually happened, because during that time when that raid got shut down, and the other thing that they got a little bit wrong in that scene is Jorge Salcedo was not present in the apartment when we hit it, and he wasn't there with Miguel Rodriguez. So our big concern was, one, that we were going to get PNG'd and thrown out of the country, because we were actually arrested, in real life by the prosecutor that was there. He wrote up an official denuncia, like an oficio that, charged us with conducting a unilateral and illegal operation in the apartment. But so we had our problems with the ambassador, which we got our ass chewed out. But our main concern at that point was we thought for sure that Jorge Salcedo would be compromised, that they would find out that he was the source behind that operation, and that they were going to kill him. And we didn't hear from him for probably 4 or 5 days after that raid. And I'll tell you what, when you work with some of these assets, and they're basically, and he told us, a few times that we could get into the meeting in the sugarcane field, which was pretty surreal. that, you know, he was basically putting his life in our hands by cooperating.
Right.
And we had felt that we let him down because we weren't able to capture Miguel Rodriguez during that time. And our concern was that they were going to find out that he was the mole, the asset, and that they were going to kill him. So for 5 days, you can imagine every day waking up, sending him a message, not hearing anything back, and thinking worse. And you know how it is. You always presume the worst case scenario. Right. So we thought the worst after that raid.
Yeah, obviously the last thing you want to do is get a source killed. You know, we want to make a case, but yeah, that would not be good.
Hey, Chris, I got a quick question for you, Chris. This guy right here, Pacho Herrera, on the series, they show that he was a homosexual. Was he in reality a homosexual, and how was he accepted among the other cartels and in the Colombian culture as a homosexual? And was he open about it?
Great question. Yes, he was gay, and two, he was very open about it. And he was also, you know, accepted by the Cali leaders as well as everybody else in the drug trafficking world, because Pacho had the reputation as being probably the most violent of the four Cali godfathers. So, yeah, he had killed several people. I'll give you an example of, you know, some of the things that he did. There was, Pacho used to like to play soccer, and during the war with the Medellin cartel, you know, they had a 6-year war from 1988 to 1993 until Pablo was killed. And Escobar launched this operation to try to assassinate Pacho. And he sent about 20 Medellin, you know, sicarios, and they were dressed as Colombian National Police. They rolled up into the soccer field in these trucks. They got out and they just started shooting, trying to kill everybody. And they killed 19 people and they wounded 8. But Pacho and his brother were able to escape. And to make a long story short, where these guys staged at was a finca, was a little farm outside of where Pacho's soccer field was. And the farmer that owned the property let these Medellin sicarios come and stage at his property. So Pacho was able to track this farmer down. 2 years later, they finally found him. And what they did is they took him out to one of Pacho's finca. It's called El Desierto, out in the middle of nowhere. And they drawn and quartered him. They tied him to 2 SUVs, right? Oh. Arms to one, like this, his legs to the other. And they outlined this in the first episode of Narcos season 3, where they tied a guy to the motorcycle, right? Yeah. And they slowly pull him apart. But it wasn't a motorcycle. They tied him to 2 SUVs. And they slowly pulled him apart until, you know, ultimately they just tore the poor guy apart. And, you know, they drove around the finca there with the body, you know, in 2 pieces. So, so he was openly accepted by everybody because of that and because of his violence. No one would ever challenge Pacho because they knew the reputation that he had.
Any other questions, fellas?
Hey, Chris, real quick, and it's going back to Pablo Escobar. I watched the show the other day where they were debating on who actually killed him. And I guess there's some controversy over who actually had the fatal shot, basically.
Yeah, there's been a lot of controversy and conspiracy theories over the years. You know, some people say that he committed suicide. Other people say that you know, the U.S. Special Forces had killed him. But look, I mean, you want to do the research, you can ask Steve Murphy and Javier Pena exactly what happened. And you know, he was killed by the search block as he was running barefoot across the third story of the rooftop. And, you know, that's the story. And then that's the truth. And, you know, people always come up with these conspiracy theories.
Here's a question.
Now, is that the famous photograph where the guys are all surrounding him and he's dead and they're like holding his head up like it was some big game hunter?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I have a copy of that photo. But now you can make the leap that if you see the photograph that you're talking about, you can see that there's a pretty obvious head wound right there.
Yeah.
And if I had to bet money on it, I would say that the colonel that was there, Hugo Aguilar, who's always posing in the photo with him, probably did the coup de grace shot to the head to finish him off. But that's exactly how it happened.
Okay.
Here's a question, Chris.
Hey, Chris, we got a question from
The FARC.
Yeah, go ahead, Bobby. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. There were, the FARC was always operating in Colombia at that time. They would come into Bogota. They actually blew up one of the buildings that was there, the Metropolitan Club, which was right in downtown Bogota. They were known to come into the Zona Rosa and throw grenades, into crowded bars to try to kill people. They were kidnapping people constantly, all the time, which is one of the concerns that we always had. And we had these certain travel restrictions while we were there. Is that when we were in Bogota, we could not go any further than Chía, which is a town to the north, and we could not go over to La Calera into another area because those were very heavily occupied FARC zones. So, we were always worried about the FARC. There was constant problems with the FARC. They were setting off car bombs throughout the city. I never had any run-ins personally with them, but you were always very, very security conscious and worried that, you may run into them.
Okay. Any questions?
How long were you down in Colombia total?
Great question. So I did 3 separate tours while I was there. I was there from 94 to 97 for the Cali Cartel. I was there from 99 to 2002 to work on some other investigations targeting the North Valley Cartel. And then I was there from 2004 to 2010, working against the paramilitary group, the AUC, the United Self-Defense Forces of Colombia, as well as the FARC. So I spent a total of just over 12 years in Colombia.
Wow. It's a long time.
Almost half my career.
Yeah.
We're getting close to winding down. Let's wind down with the Cali Cartel and put them out of their misery, at least temporarily, or as they were known. We'll move forward. When did you guys and obviously you start catching all the Godfathers. When you guys start catching the Godfathers, usually there's always going to be somebody else that's going to step up. What did you guys encounter? Was there more violence? Was there a lull? What happened? And then how did relate that to when the movement started going from the Caribbean, Florida, to Mexico?
All right, so let's start with the movement, the shift from the Caribbean to Mexico. So if you go back in history, you look at the Caribbean corridor, and that was basically started by Carlos Leder, one of the founding fathers of the Medellin cartel, and later basically revolutionized cocaine smuggling via aircraft. And if you ever see the movie Blow with Johnny Depp, there's a guy that he's Diego Delgado in the movie Blow, but that's actually Carlos Leder. And Carlos Leder purchases this island called Norman's Cay, 200 miles off the coast of the United States, off of Florida. And back then, the aircraft weren't able to complete this round trip mission, departing Colombia, doing airdrops in the U.S. and coming back to Colombia without refueling. So Carlos Leder purchases this island in Norman's Cay, in the Bahamas, and he sets up this refueling and transportation mecca island. And they just start bombarding, the eastern coast of the United States with, thousands of kilos of cocaine. And finally, in 1982, the Bahamians throw Leder out based on U.S. pressure. He goes back to Colombia. So you start to see after 82, 84, you start to see this shift into Mexico. And the Cali Cartel were the ones that really exploited this. They would fly these massive 727s and these Caravel aircraft loaded with, 8, 10, 12, 15 tons of cocaine into Mexico, it would be offered by the MFJP, the Mexican Judicial Police, and it would be transported by the Mexican cartels through Mexico into the United States, where it would be turned back over to the Colombians. So, that in that early to mid '80s, the mid '80s was really the stepping stone that Mexico was. So, and what was the second part of your question?
The final blow there to the Cali Cartel.
Yeah.
That
So,
you guys involved.
after Jose Santa Cruz gets arrested in July of 1995. He escapes from prison in January of 1996. He's on the run for a couple months, and he is just, brutally killed in Medellin, Colombia.
That was Chepe, right?
Chepe Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
A couple months later, William Rodriguez, who was the son of Miguel Rodriguez, one of the leaders of the Cali Cartel, he gets this assassination attempt against him. He's shot 8 times. 5 of his bodyguards are killed. It's a hail of gunfire, over 100 rounds fired. And, Pacho Herrera, he gets arrested. While he's in prison, he gets killed in prison, right? So all 3 of these events are orchestrated by the North Valley Cartel.
Right.
Because they see that the Cali Cartel is weak. They're vulnerable. The de facto leader is William Rodriguez, who was Miguel Rodriguez's son. And they make this main power play to try to take over, to control, that Cali corridor, as well as the port of Buenaventura, which is a very strategic area to ship cocaine into Mexico. So you can see already the Cali Cartel trying to become the king, basically, to take over. And they do. After those events, the North Valley Cartel basically rises in power, and they replace the Cali Cartel as the biggest drug trafficking organization in Colombia.
I saw a message earlier. Somebody asked about the Ochoa brothers. I think the Ochoa brothers were in Medellin, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Did you have anything to do with that?
No. Yes and no. The Ochoas, they surrendered in 1991 because of a deal they had in place with the Colombian government. So a couple of years later, Fabio Ochoa, the youngest of the Ochoa brothers, gets out of prison. And we do this operation called Operation Millennium back in 1999. And Fabio Ochoa gets wrapped up in this operation, negotiating to send large amounts to the U.S. So he gets indicted, he gets arrested and extradited to the United States, where he does almost 30 years in prison. And he was recently released within the last couple of years and sent back to Colombia. But so the only dealings I ever had was with in an investigation targeting Fabio Ochoa, the youngest of the Ochoa brothers.
Okay. We're getting close to rounding up here. Big question I have. Venezuela, El Cartel de los Soles, Nicolas Maduro and his crooked generals. What kind of threat do you think they are? What do you think is going to happen with them? Any predictions? Anything you see there?
Well, that's a loaded question. So, let's talk about
Leave
that.
it to your buddies.
Nicolas Maduro is indicted in the U.S. for the last couple of years on narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, money laundering charges. There is a $50 million reward for his arrest and/or prosecution in the U.S. We could put our little tinfoil hats on a little bit and speculate as to why there's a $50 million reward. In my mind, I think it's to cause instability
Regime
in
change.
Venezuela, and also potentially, regime change, a possible coup. So I think that Maduro goes to bed every night with one eye open, just waiting for U.S. forces to come in and invade. Not saying that that's going to happen,
Right.
but I'm sure that that's what he thinks. I mean, he saw what happened in 1989 when the U.S. military invaded Panama to go Noriega and bring him back to the U.S. under very, very similar, circumstances. Noriega was indicted in the U.S. on drug trafficking charges as well. I think this military action in the Caribbean corridor targeting, these go-fast vessels, these kinetic strikes are just a prelude as to what's going to come. If I had to guess, and I absolutely have no inside information, obviously, about what will happen, I think you may see some type of operation here in the future to try to, in and grab Maduro and the U.S. And, you know, he's seen as an illegitimate president because of the election, which took place. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that he didn't win the election. He's not recognized by many governments as being the legitimate leader of Venezuela. So I think when you put all that into play, I think you may see some action here. Could be tomorrow, could be in 6 months. It could be that Maduro steps down, but I think you'll see something happen here shortly.
What are you doing now? And he works on a second book. What are you doing now?
Well, I'm trying to keep up with my brother Leo Silva. Out Narco Tales, which I'm sure will be very good, just as the first one was. So, I have been approached to write a second book about the North Valley Cartel and what we did and how we actually took them down. That's a little bit more of a complicated story because there's a lot of players involved. I've started a few outlines on the books. I'm doing that. I've also trying to work on a couple documentaries, which we have non-disclosure agreements on right now, so I can't get into it. But they're in the works. We'll see how it plays out and see if they go anywhere, they gain any traction. But so I keep busy doing that with consulting, trying to do television stuff, and keep up with Leo on my second book.
Well, I appreciate you coming and visiting with us again, a second time appearance, and I look forward to having you on again here soon. Any questions from the peanut gallery over here?
No, Chris, this is fascinating. Absolutely. From my standpoint, I mean, this is amazing what you guys did down there and survived it. I mean, especially with Escobar and the cartels down there, they'd shoot and kill you as soon as look at you.
One last question before we move. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, Chris, we can't wait for you to come back because you just smoking that cigar right there. Us cigar smokers are salivating, brother. So we can't wait to, without a doubt, man, to have you back. Thank you. De veras, mil gracias de todo corazón for being with us once again. I know you're extremely busy, man, but finding time to be on Ash Wednesday. We're very grateful. Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, just a big shout out. Like, don't forget, for any of you locally, or if anybody comes through Phoenix, wants to have a cigar and a beer, reach out to me, and I'll treat you here at Smoke and Joe's Cigar Lounge. It's a great place, and the beer and cigars are on me.
Hey, I'm going to take you up on that, Bobby. Hey, Chris, once again, thank you, brother. We will hopefully see you very soon. Happy holidays, brother. God bless you.
Thank you, you too. Thanks for having me.
Chris.
Come back anytime. A lot more to talk about. We're just scratching the surface.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Hey, guys, what a great show, huh? I mean, this is why we created this channel, for stuff like this. We bring in a legend like Chris to come in. I mean, this guy's a legend. I mean, being in Colombia for all those years, taking down one of the biggest cartels, man, what an honor. That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
Again.
Yeah, what's one of the reasons I really love these stories, especially these guys that work overseas doing this stuff and these cases that they're able to accomplish. It's like if people understood the tightrope that they're walking between our government's policies, their host government's policies, and they're having to utilize the host nation's assets. And you think about just the Cali case you're talking about. He said it took 3 years. If you think about 3 years, that seems like a long time, but it's really not to take down an entire organization. 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we worked street gangs for how long, and we still have the same street gangs, right?
Yeah.
I loved your question, Doug, about if they were armed in a foreign country.
Yeah.
And, and going back to, Chacon and the border team and stuff, we ran into those guys. They crossed the border into the United States, Grupo Beta and the Municipales Federales. And you know, when we contacted them, sometimes it turned out good, sometimes it turned out bad. But if we stepped into Mexico while armed, that's armed invasion of their country, and they didn't take kindly to it. And we actually, me and Dave Garcia actually went into Beta's office in Tijuana, in Mexico, armed. And we would do that all the damn time until they got a new comandante. And then he just did not like that at all.
Yeah.
We were, you know, told to leave the country. So, that's a touchy area. And Dave, you know this more than anybody.
And I'll tell you, Doug, these guys, the DEA guys, Silva, Chris, and so many others, they're heroes. I remember when I was working in Tijuana, when I was working in Mexico, we had just left Tijuana. I'm in San Diego. It's 10 o'clock at night. I get a phone call from Juan Martinez. He was I believe, the rack in Tijuana at the time for DEA. And he's calling me and he goes, hey, we're in there's a huge shooting going on right now. I know you just left Sambo's, and he says a restaurant. He goes, as soon as you left, the cartel showed up. They got it, and I'm here right now, and I could hear the AR-15s, the AK-47s going off, boom, 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 and I could literally hear him. And he's in the middle of it all. You know,
and he's calling you.
And he's calling. He goes, hey, are you still in there? I go, no, we just left Sambo's. He goes, well, there's a shooting going on right now at Sambo's in the Rio, and I just wanted to make sure you were okay. And I could hear the guns going off. And I was at home in San Diego, safe in Chula Vista, and here's our brother right there in the middle of it all. And I'm sure Silva was there. I'm sure Chris was there. And so many of our DEA agents that are working right now, FBI, ICE agents that are living in Mexico. I'm telling you, they're without a doubt true heroes. Heroes.
Oh, it's just amazing. I mean, it was he and his partner put that whole case together.
Two white guys.
They had
2 white guys in Colombia.
They were probably 2 feet taller than all the nationals, you know.
Exactly. I mean,
but
unbelievable.
I mean, that is really noteworthy police work right there.
Exactly.
Noteworthy. And I'm glad these guys are writing their books because it's amazing.
Talking about police work, you know what? This segues into next week's episode. Next week, because it's one day before Thanksgiving, we still are going to have, guys, we're going to have Ash Wednesday next week, but it's going to be a special episode. You do not want to miss next week's episode. We're going to call it Compromising Bullying Administration Situations and Experiences that we had as police officers. We're going to share stories, but we're not going to mention names because the individuals that we're going to be talking about aren't there to defend themselves. But we're going to be sharing stories how we, as police sergeants, I was a detective sergeant, Doug was a detective sergeant, Sean was a lieutenant, and Bobby was a detective. But how we were put into compromising situations where at times we were asked to lie on a police report by one of our superiors. And we've never talked about this, but next week we are going to talk. Like I said, we're not going to mention names. They're not there to defend themselves, and it's not fair. But we're going to tell you stories how our morals, our ethics were compromised by the San Diego Police Department, by the Phoenix Police Department, by the Department of Justice, by the FBI. So don't miss next week's episode. It's going to be outstanding. That's going to be at 5 o'clock next Wednesday. We've never shared this, so it's the first time we're sharing it. And also on the Gray Line, we got our brother, Johnny Ray from Yard Down, the author. He's going to be talking about state prisons again, about searches, about search warrants. He's going to break down the state prison system, the Sureños. So, guys, it's going to be an outstanding episode. But don't forget, next Tuesday, Johnny Ray, Yard Down. And then the following day, guys, this is the first time we ever talk about that. So you're going to find that very interesting. Compromising, bullying, administration situations that we as sergeants and lieutenants and detectives experience in law enforcement. It's going to be a great episode.
I don't think one day is going to handle it. I'm looking at other social media sites, and this, you would think we're in 2025, and you would think that this should not be going on. It's getting friggin' worse.
It is. It is.
It absolutely is getting worse. And it's all about politics and whatnot. And I will tell you right now, as a precursor to the next week, if I knew about the politics that I had to be involved with as a lieutenant, I would have given up those friggin' gold bars in a friggin' heartbeat.
But we're going to talk about it next week. We're going to talk about it next week. And guys, with that said, you know what? Juan Cephas was on the show 2 weeks ago. Yes. He's coming back. But you know, he's coming back to the gray line. And he's going to tell stories about serial killers. Guys, I want to have, I know you got next month, Doug, but if you could find a Wednesday for Juan Cephas, dude, this guy, I mean, he is good. If you guys get a chance, I didn't put up his picture, but I'll have it up next week. He has a podcast called Fit PD. Please subscribe to it. Juan Cephas, great cop, a legend with San Diego PD, a legend in the police academies. Please, let's get him on, Doug, because
we'll set something up.
All right, I'll give you a call.
Perfect. And I'll send you his number, Doug, because I know you're in charge of December coming up. Yeah. Guys, with that said, Doug, last words, my brother.
You know, I don't really have any today. I mean, it was a good week this week. We got some nice rain here in San Diego. It's been a good week. So you know what, folks out there, is have a good week.
Yeah.
Just sit back, relax, and have a good week, and turn off the news. Just turn it off. You know, it's just like turn it off.
Yeah.
Just relax. Read a good book. Watch a movie. Yeah. Just get out of your own headspace.
You know, speaking of reading a good book, after last week with Carlos passing away and whatnot, I found my old copy of Lines and Shadows, and again, I bought it back in the 80s, just as I was a member of the Border Crime Task Force, Border Crime Prevention Unit, whatever they wanted to call it. And reading it again, it's like taking me back to Southern Division back in the 80s, and hearing what they went through, and taking it and putting it into what we went through on the uniform side of it, and it's honestly, guys, it's the exact damn thing. We went through the same emotions. Same bullshit with the department, and hopefully we'll do a show about that, comparing them and us, and it's the same thing, absolutely the same thing. Nothing had changed in the 80s as it did when they were out walking the woolly wilderness. Same exact thing. But on that note, be safe. Like Doug said, don't watch the news.
Turn it off.
You know, so Dave, I know you're going to give us a positive ending here.
Guys, you know what? Starting next week, we're going to be really talking a lot about Carlos Memorial Service. It's coming up. It's going to be December 6th at El Camino. I'll be putting some pictures up. But after every episode, we're going to be playing some of his favorite songs with his pictures. If you get a chance, you've never been to a police memorial. When a police officer usually dies in the line of duty, you have thousands of people. But with a gentleman like Carlos Chacon, who was a true legend and a giant, not only in the law enforcement world, but in the community and in our hearts, you're going to see a lot of people. It's going to be a beautiful memorial service. And the following week, the week of December 1st, every night, before I had this channel, I had another channel called Sheepdog Assist. I believe I had him on there 3 times. We're going to be showing old episodes of him. So all week long, we're going to be episodes of Carlos. Going to be beautiful. And then 2 days after his funeral, we are going to have a special episode on Ash Wednesday, I believe December the 8th. On the Great Line. where we are going to honor him. And like I said, you know what? What a legend. With that said, we will see you next Tuesday. We'll see you next Wednesday. Happy holidays. God bless you, and make every second count. Make a difference in somebody's life and live a purpose-driven life. This was one of Carlos's favorite songs. God bless you.
Good night.
I'm not yours and baby, you're not mine. We've got something and it sure is fine. Let's take our love one night at a time. There's one thing that we both agree. I like you and baby you like me. Let's take our love one night at a time. All night, love all night. Practice makes perfect. Gonna get it right. Gonna get it right. One night at a time. All night, love all night. Practice makes perfect. Gonna get it right. Gonna get it right. One night at a time. Oh, I think about you all day long. It feels so good, it can't be wrong. I got my fingers crossed that this goes on and on. Tomorrow, well, that's another day. Come on, baby, now what do you say? Let's take our love one night at a time. All night, love all night. Practice makes perfect. Gonna get it right. Gonna get it right. One night at a time. All day long, it feels so good, it can't be wrong. I got my fingers crossed that this goes on and on. All night, love all night. Practice makes perfect. Gonna get it right. Gonna get it right. One night at a time. All night, love all night. Practice makes perfect.